everybody. Welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, here for this May preview edition, and I'm joined by my fabulous co-hosts.
Hey, Rob, it's Diana.
And it's me, Jackie.
And if you're watching the video, you've seen this already, but if you are listening to the podcast, you will soon know we're actually joined, I think this might be a very first, joined by another special guest, Alan Haberman.
Hello.
Now, Alan has joined us because he has become our book club expert. If you have not been listening or you haven't looked at the previews, we do have some special book club episodes that we put out about quarterly or so. And Alan has sort of been our voice of reason. We've been very happy to have him here. And we were chatting and we said, you're coming on the preview to talk more about this because we want to keep getting the word out because I think these are pretty good. But anyway, you should probably talk about what the show is if this is the very first time you've ever listened. And you're excited to hear that Alan is here and Robin, Diana, and Jackie. But what are you listening to? Why? A podcast about behavior analysis. I didn't even know that was a sneeze. And behavior analytic research. And this is our preview where we're going to discuss what we will be discussing at length throughout the month of May, the merry month of May.
Do you know why I sneezed? Because it's May and I'm with these flowers.
Oh, gosh.
So these flowers.
The darling buds of May.
These flowers are flowers without behavior analysis. But with behavior analysis.
You have to describe them. You need to paint a verbal picture for the listeners.
Right. So these are dusty and a very brownish
They're
brown
desiccated.
color.
Dried.
Withered.
They're dried.
Withered.
And very dusty.
But then with behavior analysis, they've blossomed and
Change into a whole different kind of flower.
A whole different kind of flower. Now they're white.
We shouldn't make those types of claims. We can't do that.
No, that's true. But
We celebrate the flower you are.
the feeling inside.
Yeah, sure.
This is what you feel like inside. And you even get this handy dandy new.
Little mason jar
Amazing.
action.
I don't know. I was trying to make it. We used to be so clever.
I know. We haven't been together for a long
Yeah.
time. So
No,
our
that's
prop
true.
work might need a little
Yeah.
dusting off, shall we say.
We'll call Carrot
Right.
Top and see if he can give us some
Those
tips.
over there remind me of the short story I wrote for Emily.
I don't know. Those are
So good. So creepy.
It's not flowers for Algernon or to build a fire. I
Okay.
don't know what it is.
Anyway,
But anyway, we're not going to talk about short story. Alan, do you have a short story reference? Do you want to throw in there?
I'm good.
Flower.
Okay. Include a flower name, yeah. But we're not going to talk about short stories. We're going to talk about episodes coming out this May. Before we do that, though, before we look to the future, let's look to the past. So, Alan, you recently joined us to talk about Neurotribes. So that preview was out on our free feed. It's probably been about a little over a month since this preview is coming out, and certainly is available on our Patreon page at the $10 level. You can get that, and again, it's worth 2 CEs because we talked forever. But Alan, you were a key contributor to the discussion on Neurotribes. So would you mind sharing kind of your thoughts? It's been a little while, I know, but your thoughts on the book for the listeners.
Yeah, sure. And by key contributor, you mean sole contributor to both book clubs so far. So
Well, we were there
people
too,
join. That's true. Sole guest contributor. So we talked about Neurotribes, which people, if they're not familiar, is by Steve Silverman. He's a popular science journalist, famously wrote an article for Wired called The Geek Syndrome back in the 90s that really put the spotlight on Asperger's syndrome in Silicon Valley. And he got such good feedback about that he turned it into like this really massive book that's really hard to manage and talk about sometimes because he does so much in it. The sort of big 3 things that he addresses, though, sort of the history of autism research, its heroes and villains, people like Leo Kanner, who's an American sort of psychodynamic Freudian type, a psychologist who had some really problematic ideas. He talks about Asperger, in his clinic in Austria, and how they had some really great ideas and interventions, but then that was complicated by Nazism and the unfortunate consequences of that all across Europe in terms of the scientific community and how it affected all sorts of researchers. And then getting into post-war people like Lorna Wing, who I really talk about a lot in that and really admire, that doesn't get a lot of attention, but she was really cool. Then there's also a lot of vignettes of people and families living with autism. Some of the chapters are just these really intensive explorations that he has probably had with people on things like ham radio and
We loved that chapter.
yeah. Rob really likes that chapter and doesn't complain about it at all.
Nope.
At all. And then finally, the sort of final chapters are about the autism rights movement, and people like Temple Grandin and groups like the Tribe that gave us terms like neurodiversity, neurotribes, neurotypical, and their contributions to sort of what we know of as autism intervention now, the criticisms that they generated for psychology, some even for behavior analysis. It's expansive and kind of hard to manage to talk about all in one go. But it's a really fun book, really great book. It's a good introduction to just sort of autism as a sort of cultural concept, and not just as a pathology, not just as a sort of story that something that families deal with. It's a really nice overview of autism as something that we need very much to incorporate in the modern world.
So if you're a person out there who likes the idea of that book, but you're like, I don't really want to read a book, could other people talk about it for 2 hours and I'll just sort of listen in? Well, guess what? That is available. We have provided that service to you, as well as access to our last book way back when we talked about meaningful differences, the famous meaningful differences with the 30 million word gap, which again, Alan fortunately was there because he was the only one who could find the citation for the gap in the book.
It's one graph and one appendix. No one, someone cherry picked that and it became what everyone talked about.
Yeah, that was a great summary. Thank you.
All right, so that's sort of what had been coming up, but let's talk about what will be coming up as well, because we've got a bunch of topics and a special guest coming in, another special guest joining us later this month. So Diana, would you mind doing a research review rundown?
Sure thing. All right, so we have 3 new episodes planned for this month, and the first of those is we're going to discuss quality of life measures and quality of life goals. And we have several articles to review for that topic. The first is a systematic review of quality of life of adults on the autism spectrum. And that is by Ayers, Parr, Rogers, Mason, Avery, and Flynn, published in Autism in 2017. Next up, quality of life for people with autism, raising the standard for evaluating successful outcomes, by Burgess and Gutstein in Child and Adolescent Mental Health, published in 2007. And finally, Meaning and Measurement, Evaluating Young Autistic Adults' Active Engagement and Expressed Interest in Quality of Life Goals, by Bernhardt, Lamb, Thomas, Cubells, Bohlke, Reid, and Rice in Autism and Adulthood 2020. All right, so that's topic number 1, which I was very excited to talk about, and you guys indulged me.
We were very bored.
I wasn't. I love quality of life.
I think it was a great topic,
we enjoyed that
and
topic.
I hope that our listeners like it too. And then next up, we have a special guest joining us to talk about the evolution of functional analysis, and that is Dr. Jessica Slaton. She's provided us with several articles to take us on a little walk through time. And there's
a short story mentioned in Neurotribes, I think, A Walk Through Time.
Yeah.
In that chapter about ham radios.
I don't think that's true.
No.
Okay, and the first one that we'll talk about is titled Nature and Scope of Synthesis and Functional Analysis and Treatment of Problem Behavior by Slaton and Hanley, published in JABA in 2018. So that will provide some of that backbone for us, but then also more specifically, we have articles on identification of environmental determinants of behavior disorders through functional analysis of precursor behaviors by Smith and Churchill in JABA 2002.
It's one of my favorites.
And these are all sounding quite familiar, aren't
Yep.
they? Response latency as an index of response strength during functional analyses of problem behavior by Thompson, Sassy, Iwata, Neidert, and Roscoe, sorry, Eileen.
You actually
I was just like,
know
on a
her.
roll. I don't know what happened there. JABA 2011.
I like that one too.
Fantastic. And finally, toward accurate inferences of response class membership by Warner, Hanley, Landa, Ruppel, Rajaraman, Gamagami, Slaton, and Gover. Java 2020. I'm so excited about this. I'm pretty sure this is the article that I have been referencing for a long time. And like, these are great data, but I'm not sure where the data are.
Right there.
They're here. They're finally here. So I'm so excited about that.
When that article was published, the sky was dark because all of these stars of the synthesized FA field were right there.
Yes, it's a heavy hitter. So that's very exciting.
If you want to give yourself a really good cognitive challenge or a good kind of like fine motor challenge, take notes on an article discussing all of the research on synthesized FAs and just keep typing synthesized EOs and synthesized reinforcers over and over and over again. If you can do it, you are the master typer.
And I'm guessing that that's you.
If you check our notes page, it is not I who is the master typer.
All right, fair enough. All right, and then our final topic for the month of May is on bullying and bullying prevention. So I figured this is a popular topic among folks who work in the school systems, as this often needs to be discussed in one way, shape, or form, hopefully just as a preventative measure. But Rob found us a plethora of articles to review related to bullying. And the first one is Bully Prevention and Positive Behavior Support by Ross and Horner, published in JABA 2009.
You wanted to say 2020 so bad.
I know.
There's some 2020s in there.
Phew.
I just read an article that cited an article published in 2099. It's a typo.
Okay, I was like, I don't think that
I was like, look, y'all, this is not right. Next, response to bullying, RTB.
Okay.
Behavioral skills and in situ training for individuals diagnosed with intellectual disabilities by Stannis, Crossland, Miltenberger, and Valbuena in JABA 2019. And then evaluating the effectiveness of school bullying prevention programs, an updated meta-analytical review by Gaffney, Toffe, Farrington, published in Aggression and Violent Behavior,
Never heard of that journal
2019.
before.
There's so many journals out
That's
there.
that's a really good article. I remember.
Oh yeah, you've read it?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably a little dry in places because it's a research article, but it really is nice to see like someone take bullying super seriously from like the behavioral side of things,
Nice.
the way that they do.
Oh, good. All right.
Look
Should have
out,
led
everyone.
with that one then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then we have examining the effectiveness of school bullying intervention programs globally, a meta-analysis. So this was probably not the updated one because it's also Gaffney, Farrington, and
Right.
Toffe. So this one came first, I guess.
Spoiler alert, it's taking a subset of the data and just looking more specifically at it in a more global lens.
That's
Fair
But
enough.
you know what? I'm tired of US related research, and I said, I'm taking the global meta-analysis.
Okay. Well, this one was published in the International Journal of Bullying Prevention, also 2019.
Wow, they
Big
were
year.
We're
Big year
taking it
for
around the
Gaffney
world in
research
May.
group.
jealous. Ooh.
And then most recently, what works in anti-bullying programs? Question mark. Analysis of effective intervention components by our friends Gaffney, Toffe, and Farrington.
Hannah.
Journal of School Psychology 2021. She's blowing it up.
So
I
yeah,
am
full
jealous.
disclosure, I had reached out to Dr. Gaffney specifically for that last article,
Mhm.
and she was kind enough to share that one as well as the meta-analysis.
Very
And I
nice.
thought, you know what? These are all coming from the same data sets, and they're looking at specific components of the piece. And at the time, this was an episode that became an episode after I was like, I need to do research on a topic, relevant
Mhm.
to, like my day-to-day, work. And then it was like, there's too much good research about this. And there's not a lot in the behavior analytic field. So we really had to go outside there to find, some of the more elaborate data. Otherwise, it's a lot of, PBIS type work, which is all good work, but it's not necessarily what I wanted when I was looking at sort of the big picture of research. So
Mhm.
it's a little background information to where our articles come from. Sometimes they're topics we're just interested in. Sometimes they're topics that
Rob just cold emails people.
you know what? If you're not doing it, you're doing something wrong. You got to just get used to emailing people and saying, "Hey, that article you wrote, it's great. I want to read it. It's $100, or I got to rent it for like $70."
Usually people are happy to share
Could you
their
just
work.
send it to me for free?
Well, I'll tell you, let me look and see what the name of it is. This Bernhardt article under the quality of life, I emailed Dr. Catherine Rice for it, actually.
Nice.
And she gave it to
Who are
me.
you? I want you to know that Dr. Gaffney works at the UK Institute of Criminology. Fancy.
Wow.
You know,
In Cambridge, but in England.
but in England, not in Massachusetts.
Not in
fancy.
Massachusetts. There's not a
All
lot
right,
of
so that's it.
criminology in Cambridge, Massachusetts, if you don't know the area.
We got a
It's
lot.
pretty ritzy.
But yeah, cool.
All right.
I'm
So
pretty sure the University of Cambridge is maybe ritzy too.
Pretty
they got those
rich.
soccer
I
hooligans there,
know.
Alan. I don't know if you've heard about them,
Thanks,
but
Alan, for calling that out. I was
I
going to,
know.
and I was like, eh.
those
Like, it's
Monty
not worth it. It's
Pythons,
not worth
they're
going down.
everywhere. They're, you never know when they're going to show up. All right,
Okay.
let's move into the
We need
errata
that.
section of the show where we discuss other things as well as any kind of emails or any updates. Before we go into some emails, I know we had a quick shout out to Nicole Grosskreutz. Grosskreutz. Sorry, I've always mispronounced, but Dr. Grosskreutz, who had gave us a little shout out in the New England Behavior Analyst on some articles. She did a really nice piece sort of summarizing some COVID exercise tips and actually cited some of our episodes we've done on exercise with Dr. Nick Green. So thank you very
That's
much,
so nice.
Nicole. It's very
Thanks,
nice.
Nikki.
We didn't know it was, I was just reading it this morning and
How
I
can
saw, I
you-
was like, wait a minute, citation me? What the heck?
I like when we got some texts around. I'm like, we're in an article, and someone wrote Teen Vogue.
I wrote that. Who
You
else
did.
would write that?
That was funny. I might.
That's true. You might write Teen
I
Vogue.
love Teen Vogue.
We were not in Teen Vogue, so they do not get a shout out.
No, they don't. Even though they just did. And we were also in another place.
Yeah, the Rethinking Behavior magazine as well featured one of our episodes, which was the school refusal episode, which even though it was episode 58 and happened kind of a long time ago, continues to be very popular amongst people. And Dr. Christopher Kearney is the guy who does all of that research and is very well, he knows his stuff, very well versed in what he did. So we reviewed some of his research, and Jimmy Noose is the one who wrote that up for Rethinking Behavior magazine. So thank you so much, Jimmy. We feel
Thanks.
very honored. Thanks
And
for
if-
thinking of us.
It's 58, right? For
Yep.
school refusal behavior. And we also did one of our bonus episodes. I had a chance to talk to Dr. Kearney about his school refusal research. So if you like the kind of brief review we do and you want to hear more information, then he goes into more depth and shares some of his other resources that are out there.
Another cold email friend of Rob's.
Yeah,
You know what? I'm
Yes.
very likable over email. What
you
can
are
I say?
actually.
Thank you.
Just over email.
Just over, yeah, not in person, just over email. All right. Speaking of email, Jackie, do we have any emails?
Yeah, so I'm gonna read. Well, I'm gonna tell you about one email because my computer died.
Oh,
That's how it happens. But I know what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna pull from the Apple Podcast reviews because we haven't done that in a
we
while.
keep promising we're going to find where they are, and we finally
And
do.
we
I
finally
never know
know.
how to get to them.
We do now know.
Wow.
We've come into the age of now knowing how to get there.
We had to
But-
call our grandparents and ask them, how do you get the Apple Podcast reviews?
And they're like, you just do this, Robbie. Anyway, so listener Adrian wrote in and said that everyone that listens to the podcast should listen to the trauma-informed care episode, episode
134.
134 with Brian Middleton.
Correct.
So she
He's
says,
the bearded behaviorist.
Yep.
Yep. He's an autistic BCBA.
so if you haven't listened to that episode, you should. She said that she's using it as part of a way to talk about trauma-informed care with clinicians, educators, and BCBAs in a group, which sounds so fun.
That's so
So way to go, Adrian. But yeah,
nice
so
of her to use our resource.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she's gathering resources. We're but one
Yeah.
of the resources that she's using. But great idea.
Thanks for writing in, Adrian.
Yeah. And we have a review from Megan, listener Megan. And this one makes me happy because she says, show keeps getting better. Thanks, Megan.
Which is good because some days we're like, I wonder if the show is getting better
Or worse.
or worse.
Yeah. So she says, I like listening to the show and am pleasantly surprised every time I hear a topic that is not normally spoken about. That's what we try to do. So thanks, Megan, for calling us out there. Especially when it comes to deeper ethical issues and truly looking at client autonomy and how we need to be in changing our practices to ensure we are embracing the clients individually. Thanks for putting this out. I listen to it on my way to work, and it usually puts an extra inspiration in my day for my clients. And then is that the love emoji
It's like, yeah,
with the little
But not
guy
like
with the
the-
hearts around? Not like
Not a
the-
kissy emoji.
just like the happy.
Like
Happy
a
love.
like I'm feeling.
Yeah.
this emoji.
Good feelings.
that one.
The good
Yeah, exactly.
vibe emoji, maybe.
Yeah. So thanks, Megan.
Oh, that's so nice. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Megan.
We will
I
now
haven't-
I don't-
continue.
I was like, I have an environmental determinant for if the show's good. If I stop coming to book reviews,
Right?
No, Alan, you can't. You come to two. You gotta come to the next one in the summer, and
Right,
then
but if
you'll
I
be a
stop-
trend.
It's a trend.
if I stop, then it's because you guys are just starting to be awful.
Oh,
Oh no.
That's
Alan,
true.
we hope you would just email us or just like tell us in person sometime. Like, guys, those last episodes on
Okay,
whatever you were
maybe.
doing.
Maybe I wouldn't be passive aggressive.
I'd find your house. We'd go to Wisconsin. I'd be like, Alan, why? I've got my boom box.
It's
I'd
kind
play
of,
in your
Does it
eyes.
say anything reference?
I
I
know.
don't know if that movie holds up at this point. Is that a
I
bit
don't know.
stalkery?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
but-
love John Cusack.
Me too.
Oh, okay. So if you're John Cusack, you can go around stalking people, but nobody else.
Yeah.
Like, because there wasn't anything stalkery about that threat, so it's probably fine.
It was. I won't do that.
Jackie has been promising to hide in people's bushes since like episode 1 of this
Mhm.
show.
That is
So
true.
it goes all the way back. So
That's how we'll know we're not doing a good job. Jackie stops threatening to
I'm so-
visit people's houses.
I'm so good at stalking people.
All right.
That's good. I don't think we have to
No,
share,
that's it.
share more
That's
specifics.
good.
Just wanted you to say that.
All right. Well, that's it. I think that's it for our May preview. So we've got so many things. You've got bold book clubs to listen to. You got a whole bunch of new episodes to listen to. We'll have a new book club. Probably a couple weeks after this episode comes out, we'll be having the poll that'll be on our Patreon page, patreon.com/ABA Inside Track, where you'll be able to see what the topic will be. We have not decided it yet, though. So this is a double sneak preview. We'll have that kind of next month. List that out for everybody.
It's probably not going to be as long.
We're not going to pick another 600 plus page book that I thread. Alan and I could have gone 5 hours, I think. We didn't even talk about Rain Man.
Even
the whole
I
chapter on
said
Rain Man.
we needed
We
another
skipped.
hour.
Yeah. I didn't, but you did.
All right.
We did, but
Yeah.
it was long.
Should we say it right now? We're going to do a bonus episode where we just talk about the Rain Man chapter of
No.
We shall see.
Neurotribes. Okay,
That's
no,
I
all
don't
about
know.
later.
not happening. All right.
We can talk about it later.
Okay, so we're not promising that, but we're promised all the other articles we talked
I've
about.
talked enough about the book Neurotribes now. So
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
I'm satiated on that as a reinforcer, and we do not need to revisit it.
Same.
Every
enough.
year we'll talk about a new chapter of Neurotribes. It's a bonus episode.
It's a gift that keeps on giving.
All right.
right.
Well, that brings us to the end of our preview episode. I'm getting the wrap up signal if you're not watching the video right now. So thank you so much for listening to our preview. If you would like to find us out on the internet, well, certainly the best way is going to be subscribing to the show on your podcatcher of choice, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever.
Podcatcher.
Podcatcher, that's right. You can find these episodes all on YouTube. You can go to all our social media pages. We're everywhere as ABA Inside Track. Like we already talked about, the Patreon page, patreon.com/ABA Inside Track, where you can find the episodes. You can subscribe to get them a week ahead of time, as well as getting those extra long book club podcasts where you get some more Alan action as well. And also, you can feel free to email us at abainsidetrack@gmail.com or go to our website, abainsidetrack.com, to find links to all of our old episodes, as well as places to purchase CEs if you are so inclined. All right. Well, thank you, Jackie and Diana. Big special thanks to our very first preview guest, Alan. Thanks so much for joining us, Alan.
Glad
Not
to be
tired
here.
of us yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay, it's getting there, so we better wrap up. All right, for all of us, big thanks to everyone. We'll see you next week for a full-length episode, but until then, keep responding. Bye.